should be the most innocent members of society. But children can be capable of the most sadistic, premeditated, and brutal murders.
They beat him and hit him with a bottle. One of them stabbed Jay straight through the heart.
What drives these kids to kill men, women, friends, family?
She was determined that her mother had to die.
Even their teachers.
This was the first occasion upon which a teacher had been killed in class in the course of conducting a lesson.
Could they be born evil?
He did have a weird, dark sense of humour. He was a little bit different to most of the other kids.
He was aggressive, threatening, and dangerous.
Or are they victims of their environment?
There was a lot of gangs, there was a lot of violence, a lot of drug abusers.
With exceptional access to real police tapes.
The voices are talking to me. You need to make a sacrifice or we're going to come and get you. You need to do it.
And interviews with those closest to the victims and the perpetrators.
A red mist had simply descended.
We reveal what made them such savage killers. On the 24th of October 2010, the body of teenager Rebecca Aylward was found lying in woodland in South Wales. She had suffered violent and repeated blows to the head.
It was a severe frenzied attack.
As a mother, as a parent, it's your worst nightmare.
Rebecca had last been seen en route to meet her ex-boyfriend, 15-year-old Joshua Davies.
She thought they were getting back together. I have no doubt about that. She would have been over the moon.
For her, there was romance in the air, but at the very same time, Davies was planning to kill her.
That same day, Davies was arrested and less than a year later was convicted of her murder.
This wasn't a crime of passion. This was not impulsive. This was a murder he had planned for months.
Throughout his trial, and even after his conviction, Joshua Davies maintained his innocence.
He blamed his friend blamed him.
But in 2018, 8 years after Rebecca's death, Davies finally admitted to killing her.
That hurt even more because that means he's just sat there knowing that for 8 years.
What caused a 15-year-old boy, often described as charming and intelligent, to ferociously bludgeon his ex-girlfriend to death? And why has it taken him so long to finally admit to her murder? Rebecca Aylward was born on the 28th of February, 1995, and lived in Maesteg, South Wales. As a teenager, she attended Archbishop McGrath Catholic School, where she met one of her closest friends, Irving Smith.
Through school, Becca and I were best friends with each other. We'd go over to her house and just stay over, and her mum would be like, oh, he's here again.
Rebecca was a gorgeous girl. She had everything. She was kind. She was a lovely big sister. She was intelligent. She was funny.
She was just a really happy person, just really always laughing things, just really energetic. She was 5'3", petite, really attractive, wonderful girl.
Rebecca's number one ambition was to be a barrister. She felt that would be a fine and fulfilling job. It was all about doing something worthwhile.
Rebecca, or Becca as she was known, was incredibly close to her mother Sonia and her younger siblings Jessica and Jack.
Beck was obviously the one who the other two looked up to. She was their role model.
Rebecca's parents were divorced, so it was just Sonia and the 3 children living in their house, which they'd literally just moved into.
And like many teenage girls, Rebecca was falling in love.
Rebecca and Josh met in secondary school. He got on really well with the family, so he used to be up there a lot. Becca's family really, really liked him a lot.
He was almost part of their family and they welcomed him with open arms. He was that kind of boy. He was witty, he was personable, he was great fun to be around. He was always coming round. You know, they'd known him for a long time.
Rebecca's and Joshua Davies' relationship, though, wasn't always a smooth one.
They had an on and off relationship. It was always them too, but it was just a lot of the time they were broken up, but then some other times they went together.
She would spar with him, and I think this may have been one of the things that attracted him to her, the fact that she would take him on. She had the intelligence to do so, and I think he was used to having a little coterie of people around him who adored him and looked up to him and hung off his every word, and she wasn't that.
We know that Rebecca was supporting her mum through her divorce and had quite a negative relationship with her father. And that may have been why Rebecca was so keen to be loved and supported by Joshua.
On the 23rd of October 2010, the bright and conscientious schoolgirl disappeared.
Obviously, I mean, a missing young person is an extremely urgent call.
It was highly unusual for Becca not to be in touch with her mum. She was a responsible girl. She always kept in touch with her mum, always let her know where she was.
At the time of her disappearance, Rebecca and Joshua Davies were split up again. But she had gone to meet him that day.
She thought they were getting back together. I have no doubt about that. She would have been over the moon.
She was a young girl that was actually in love. Unfortunately, in Mr. Davies's mind was something considerably more sinister.
The next morning, police discovered her lifeless body in neglected woodland. Joshua Davies was arrested on suspicion of murder.
The absolute tragic part of this case is that Rebecca shared things with her mum. She didn't hide, she didn't sneak around, she didn't meet Joshua in secret. She told her mum where she was going to be. Sonia still couldn't protect her from Joshua Davies.
What the subsequent investigation revealed would be shocking. He'd lured Rebecca into a violent and deadly trap.
It's impossible to imagine knowing that your child has been murdered, brutally murdered.
Why did Joshua Davies, an intelligent and well-liked schoolboy, commit such a horrific crime?
This is a 15-year-old. Where did it go wrong?
On the morning of the 24th of October 2010, 15-year-old Rebecca Aylward was found violently bludgeoned to death. Rebecca's on-off boyfriend, Joshua Davies, who was also 15, was arrested for her murder. But why would this clever, popular schoolboy want to commit murder?
This is not a career criminal at the end of his career. This is a 15-year-old boy. Where did it go wrong?
Davies grew up in the small town of Aberkenfig. A well-behaved young boy, he was the eldest of 3 brothers and had a loving relationship with his parents. Irving Smith was at school with Joshua Davies and knew his family.
Josh Davies has 2 younger brothers. His father's been in the community for absolutely ages. They are really normal, nice family. They're just really nice, great people.
As he grew up, he became a model student and was never in trouble with the police or at school.
Joshua Davies was quite a catch. He was a very, very popular boy in school. He had a big following, bit of a top dog, especially as you approach year 11. It's quite a big deal. He was physically very strong, very sporty, and he was bright.
Davies and his friends would meet in a local cafe for breakfast every Saturday morning.
It was a thing they always did. They'd go rugby training. It was a little regular in their lives.
He was the alpha male of the group. And we see that type of behaviour in lots of young men and boys. We see boys that are fighting for that alpha male position. It may be being better at sports. It may be being top of the class. It may be having more girlfriends than everybody else.
But not everyone was enamoured with Joshua Davies' domineering personality.
Josh came across as very arrogant, but a lot of people within his own year really did like him. I found him completely unlikable.
In school, he was known for being arrogant. He was known for being the one that thought he was better than everybody else. And at home, we know that he was put on a pedestal. He was looked up to by his younger brothers. And he seemed to be somebody who liked that attention and liked to be in control.
Unsurprisingly, as the alpha male of his peer group, Davies had no problem attracting girls and was in an on-off relationship with another pupil at school, Rebecca Aylward. To the outside world, they seemed like any normal teenage couple. But as police began to discover, Josh's behaviour towards Becca exhibited disturbing signs of abuse.
Becca kept diaries. She'd kept diaries for a long time, and he was obsessed with seeing what she might have written in them. So much so that she had taken to letting her mum look after them in her bedroom so that Joshua couldn't get his hands on them.
Joshua would make up rumours about her. There was one where he told people that she was pregnant and then took her aside and said, you're going to say, yeah, you are, when she wasn't. I always thought it was about control, making her say things going on in her own life that just aren't happening.
What is probably alarming for people to hear is the controlling aspect of Rebecca and Joshua's relationship is actually quite common. In adolescent relationships, they haven't got the life experience, they haven't got the previous relationships to draw on, they don't know what is appropriate behaviour. And young people often describe that they think it's that somebody really loves them, so they have a very skewed view of what a healthy relationship is.
He was very obsessed with knowing what people were thinking about him and saying about him. But it was this element of constantly checking out what other people were thinking of him, constantly wanting to know where he stood, whether his status was intact.
Because of his age, Joshua Davies cannot be described as somebody with narcissistic personality disorder because you can only diagnose that at least at the age of 18. However, we can certainly say that he has narcissistic traits. What this means is that he would have been very full of himself. He would have thought himself as superior to others and also put his own needs above the needs of everybody else.
In January 2010, the pair split up yet again. After a seemingly lovely weekend together, Joshua Davies broke up with Becca via text message.
Joshua and Becca's final breakup came as a complete shock to Becca. She didn't really understand why it had happened, why he'd wanted to finish with her the way he did.
Joshua Davies describes this weekend as the best weekend he's had. He's spent time laughing and joking and having his nails painted by Rebecca. It's a weekend of fun, but it's almost like he's building her up. He's making her have a perfect weekend so she's the happiest she can be, so he can then just let her crash by ending the relationship. It's something we call the push-pull effect. You push somebody away and that makes them want you more.
He wanted to make her suffer. And in fact, the opposite happened. After the breakup with Josh, Becca was going from strength to strength.
As the months wore on, Becca began to move on with her life. But even then, Davies still tried to exert control over her.
At school, he would say things to her like, you know, your mum loves me the best, so you can't go out with anybody else. She did, in fact, start seeing another boy called Josh, and he clearly didn't like this at all. Maybe that was part of the reason he became so antagonistic towards her, that she was putting him in a smaller box than maybe he felt he deserved.
Furious that Rebecca had not crumpled as Davies had expected, he began a ruthless campaign against her.
After Becca and Davies's final split, things were markedly different. There seemed to be a bigger rift this time.
He often threatened violence as well. Saying he was going to kill her or he was going to ruin her life. And because he kind of ran their friendship group, he could and actively did a couple times just make the whole group just stop talking to her, so she'd suddenly have no friends.
This would have isolated Rebecca. This would have made her feel absolutely devastated. And what we can see by this behaviour from Joshua, it's very narcissistic in nature. It's wanting people to look up to him, whilst the person that he has got rid of, people demean and turn away from. The power that would give him, the sense of control that would give him, would be intoxicating for him.
Rebecca's relationship with Joshua Davies appeared to be over for good. However, 9 months after their breakup, Davies suddenly contacted Becca out of the blue and asked to meet up.
It had thrown her into the usual teenage maelstrom of emotions, excited, nervous, every emotion in between. But it was clearly a very big deal for her. She clearly still had strong feelings for him.
They'd been quite ratty to each other. After they split up, they'd said some very bad things about each other to their friends. But that seemed to cool, and they were on their way to getting back together again as boyfriend and girlfriend.
So even though Rebecca knew that the behaviour was wrong, she was drawn to him, she loved him, and also because of the amount of time that she'd been with him, her self-esteem would have been affected by that. So she would have started to believe that she had to be with him.
On that particular day, they'd arranged a meet in Aberkenfig. She was very excited. She'd been shopping for new clothing.
Rebecca had gone to Cardiff and gone shopping in the town centre, bought a whole new set of clothes, just for the meeting up with Josh Davies. She wanted to look at her best.
So the original plan had been that Becca would be dropped up in Aberkenfig by her Auntie Linda, and she'd pick her up later. And the plan had been that he'd meet her at Sarn Station. He then proceeded to send her on this mad, wild goose chase.
As he prepared to meet her in Aberkenfig, after he thought she would have set off, he started to redirect her by text messages to different locations. He moved her to one location, then to another.
So she's wandering around Aberkenfig, nervous, generally anxious, certainly nervous of going under the underpass in the park, and just feeling vulnerable.
It felt like he was playing a game, a very sinister game, a very dreadful game, but he was playing a game with her feelings.
As Davies' directions became more and more erratic, Becca decided to call her mum.
Sonia's anxious, and as Becca's getting anxious because Josh isn't where he's supposed to be and not answering messages, all Sonia's instincts by now are screaming out, this isn't right, he's messing her about. She had by then got to the point of saying, just come home.
But at that very moment, Rebecca told her mum that she had spotted him.
So Sonia had said, I'll stay on the phone until I know you're safely with Josh. And once she finally met him, that was the end of the conversation. And she'd said, bye, Mum, I love you. They were the last words she said to Sonia on her mobile phone on the day of her death.
Unknown to Rebecca, though, Joshua Davies didn't intend to get back together. He'd decided to kill her.
He first tried to strangle Rebecca or break her neck, but couldn't manage that. So picked up a very heavy stone and used it to cave her head in.
For me, it's significant that Joshua selected strangulation as the method to kill Rebecca. This is a very intimate way of murdering somebody. You are literally feeling them die. You are having their life in your hands. But I think what happened, he underestimated the strength it takes to strangle somebody. And because she wasn't dying, he had to resort to using a rock to hit her.
Within hours of Rebecca's body being discovered, Joshua Davies was arrested. But astonishingly, he wasn't the only suspect. One of Davies' best friends, another boy from the cafe, was also taken into custody.
The police were faced with the dilemma that only two people were at the scene, and they each blamed each other. Davies said that you say I did it, I say you did it. And what the police had to do was to be sure that they had the right person.
On the 24th of October, 2010, 15-year-old Joshua Davies was arrested on suspicion of Rebecca Aylward's murder. Initially, police had been unable to find Rebecca when she'd been reported missing. But then they received some important information from one of Davies' friends who hung out with him in the local cafe.
The reason the police had found Becca's body was because they'd had a phone call from one of the boys who was in the cafe the day before. He was becoming increasingly anxious that actually Josh had killed Becca. He then told his father what he thought had happened.
With Davies in custody, the police now began to look at possible motives for the murder. To gain more insight into Rebecca and Joshua's relationship, police interviewed their friends and were shocked by what they uncovered.
Clearly there was some sort of hate campaign going on. Social media at this time was coming into its own and was a big factor, cyberbullying and that sort of thing. It was certainly a very unpleasant time for Becca in school, I think. Joshua was, in his own world, top dog at school, and he didn't seem to have too much trouble getting other people behind him to join in with this hate campaign against Becca.
When we look at Joshua Davies, it seems shocking to us in hindsight, looking at how he controlled people when he's saying such awful things. But we need to remember what everybody said about him. Yes, he was arrogant, but people talked about him being charming, being lovely, being likeable. People liked Joshua. He was a likeable person.
As the investigation progressed, police soon discovered that Davies' hatred for Becca wasn't just confined to the internet.
Davies and his friends would meet in a local cafe for breakfast every Saturday morning.
At these meetings, he would often make reference to Becca and obviously say not very nice things about her.
He'd drag her reputation through the dirt. That turned into like Josh's planning sessions for ruining Becca's life. Josh then started saying to his friends that he wanted to kill her.
Joshua made no secret of the fact that he wanted to see Rebecca dead and that he wanted to be the person to kill her. He told friends what he planned to do. They dismissed it as teenage talk, but of course, looking back, those statements were far more sinister than what they appeared to be at the time.
It was this ability to make people like him that made people unsure of what he was really saying. It made them think, oh, he's not really serious. He's just joking. Because this likeable guy couldn't possibly be the person that's going to commit murder.
With his friends engaging in what they assumed to be Joshua's jokes about killing Becca, Davies began to embellish his threats.
He had several plans to see her death come about. One, for example, was to invite her to take a stroll along a river bank. He knew that she couldn't swim, he could. He would push her in, he would then jump into the river, apparently to save her, but use that as an opportunity to make sure that she drowned. He came up with a second plan. This one would involve poisoning her. He, in fact, researched the subject. He decided upon foxglove and deadly nightshade. He actually got hold of the substances. He mixed them together. This concoction was found at his grandmother's home after his arrest.
Teenagers will say, I'd kill her, I wish she was dead, I wish he was dead. But to go from that to specific plans, to actual, detailed ways in which you'd like to murder somebody takes it to another level. And that isn't common.
Suspicion arose that Davies may have already tried to carry out his plan to poison Rebecca, but had been unsuccessful.
Thoughts were that Josh Davies had poisoned Beck.
Becca was actually hospitalised with a very strange, mysterious stomach complaint. She collapsed a couple of times and she was suffering from a very painful stomach to the extent that she was actually having to stay off school. The cause was never found. She underwent various tests. Nobody got to the bottom of it.
He had been planning to either poison her or push her over a cliff or strangle her. This shows us that he was really enjoying planning different ways to murder her. He was getting enjoyment from the actual planning, not just the murder itself, but the how he was going to do it. And that adds to his risk.
But back at the cafe, Davies' friends were still unaware of his true designs on Becca's life and began to tire of his constant threats.
His friends became annoyed and a little bit fed up of all his boasting about all his threats about what he's going to do to Rebecca. One jokingly said that if he did really kill her, then he'd buy him a breakfast.
The other friends were just teenage boys making a joke, while Josh Davies was and is something else.
I think that tells us that he's so sure of himself. He's so sure that he also controls his friends. This tells me a lot about Joshua Davies. It adds to those narcissistic traits. It adds to that level of manipulation.
The one person who had no idea about Davies' deadly intentions was Becca, who, despite being ostracised, still carried a torch for Joshua Davies.
Rebecca really, really just absolutely loved him to bits. Even though at the same time she realised he was the worst. I don't know whether it was partly that she thought she could change him, make him into like a nicer person, or she thought there was something nice under there. She really was mad for him.
On the day of her death, Becca had gone to meet Davies in the hopes of rekindling their relationship. But that was to be the last time she was ever seen alive.
For her, there was romance in the air, but at the very same time, Davies was planning to kill her.
He engages in trying to make her believe that she could get him back. And that is what is really chilling about his personality.
Within hours of Rebecca's body being discovered, Davies was arrested, as was his best friend. It would become clear, though, that Davies had attempted to create an alibi for himself.
The police were faced with the dilemma that only two people were at the scene, and they each blamed each other. Davies' story was that he and Rebecca had in fact played a joke on his friend, that he invited his friend to the scene, Rebecca pretended to be dead, his friend looked alarmed, and then Rebecca leapt up laughing, and they both laughed at him. And that his friend became so angry at this that it was his friend who carried out the murder.
With a promising young girl brutally murdered and two boys in custody, the police needed to be sure the right person was prosecuted. An important piece of evidence was Rebecca's last known phone conversation with her mum, Sonia.
Sonia had said, I'll stay on the phone until I know you're safely with Josh. And once she finally met him, that was the end of the conversation.
It's almost a timeline of putting Rebecca with Joshua Davies.
They had Davies' constant threats towards Rebecca to drown her, poison her, They had his text messages redirecting her to various locations on the day immediately prior to the actual murder.
The police now had a clear picture of the events leading up to Rebecca's murder, and through forensic evidence, they were able to ascertain how she died. But the statements of the other boy they had arrested, and the second friend, told them of Davies' actions immediately after Becca's death.
The next thing he did was to invite his friends to come and view the body. Two of his friends came. One had a broken leg in plaster and couldn't get up the hill to the scene. One went to meet Davies, and there was Rebecca lying dead.
His friend was able to say that Joshua Davies took me to the scene where I viewed Rebecca's body. That is extremely good evidence in a prosecution case.
With the evidence stacked against Davies, the CPS took the decision that he alone would stand trial, and the boys he had invited to see the body would become star witnesses against their best friend. Less than a year after the brutal killing of Rebecca Aylward, her ex-boyfriend, 15-year-old Joshua Davies, was on trial for her murder. The papers would soon be awash with headlines that Becca had been killed for the promise of a free breakfast.
Joshua Davies' trial for the murder of Rebecca Aylward began on Monday the 20th of June 2011 at Swansea Crown Court.
I decided to go to trial, but I needed to see him get put away because we were all dreading that maybe he actually wouldn't.
I don't think anybody could have been prepared for the relaxed way he was.
He had this massive smile on his face, and he was so smug and confident. And he remained that way for basically the whole trial.
He seemed to take very little interest in the proceedings. He was interested when witnesses were talking about him, describing him, saying what he'd done, what he'd said. But when the evidence was of a different nature, didn't take any real interest in what was going on.
He is so convinced that he's going to get away with what he's done. In addition to that, he's got his parents believing him. And that is just going to enhance his narcissistic traits, that I'm going to get away with this. Even my parents believe me. I've got this.
But during the 5-week trial, the jury heard evidence about Davies and Rebecca's turbulent relationship.
They argued a lot. Threats of violence, saying he was going to kill her or he was going to ruin her life.
Davies' torrent of abuse towards Rebecca, and his fantasies and plots to kill her, culminating in a bet to take her life in return for a cooked breakfast. It was also well established that Davies was the last known person to see Becca alive. But why hadn't he met her where he said he would?
As the trial progressed, as the police managed to establish that there was method in his madness, he had devised a route that meant avoiding CCTV cameras, basically, to get her away to the woods on his own without being seen.
It also appeared that Davies had a backup plan in the event that Becca was seen in person, and astoundingly, it involved the other boy Becca had briefly dated.
One of the areas was outside the other Josh's house. And then you could say, yeah, she'd actually gone there.
The prosecution submitted forensic evidence, which proved that sometime after Davies did eventually meet up with Becca, he smashed her skull in with a rock. The prosecution were also able to obtain copies of text message conversations between Davies and his friends.
Josh, what would you do if I actually did kill her? Oh, I'd buy you breakfast, mate. Josh, don't say anything, but you may just owe me breakfast. Best text I've ever had, mate. Seriously, if it is true, I'm happy to buy you breakfast. Josh, I hope by then it will be done and dusted. I want all the details, smiley face. Josh. Large breakfast with extras of everything. Sick boy.
In addition, Davies' friends were also cross-examined. Their account of the events immediately after Rebecca's murder was not only harrowing, but also damning.
Josh Davies' friend said, "Are you still with Becca?" And he said, "Define with."
That statement of define with, that shows that he's enjoying the moment. He's not regretting what he's just done. He's reveling in the fact that he's just taken somebody's life. And in a 15-year-old boy, that is really shocking.
Despite all the evidence stacked against him, Joshua Davies continued to proclaim his innocence. His friend's presence at the scene became vital to Davies' defence, and throughout the trial he maintained that it was this friend who had committed the murder.
Joshua Davies actually tried to implicate the boy by actually taking him to the scene, so therefore he was at scene, by saying to him, "Do you want to touch the hood?" That would have actually, if you like, would have left forensic evidence on Rebecca. I think that was quite a deliberate, callous act, really.
However, the boys that Davies had invited to the scene instead testified against him, and Joshua Davies' plan to pin Rebecca's murder on his friend backfired.
He obviously believed that they would keep his secret. So when they actually informed the police, when they testified against him, this would have really angered Joshua.
Davies' former friends were also able to tell the court what had happened on the evening of Rebecca's death. The same evening she had gone missing.
Joshua and one of his friends went to his grandmother's house. He changed his clothes. They then sat down and watched a very violent movie, which they also popped on Facebook as a status update. I imagine it was designed to make everything look normal.
It's really concerning that after the murder, Joshua Davies, as well as his friends, were able to act as if nothing had happened. Were his friends terrified? Were they scared of what he would do? Or did they still not believe the absolute horror of it? I think his friends were probably in a state of shock. And that's evidenced by the fact that one of them did go home later and inform his parents what had happened.
During that evening, Davies received a call from Rebecca's mother, who by now was becoming increasingly worried about her whereabouts.
He pretended that he hadn't met Rebecca. He sent her text messages asking where she was, saying that people were concerned about her.
He was already putting in place almost an alibi.
In a further attempt to bolster his alibi, Davies posted yet another update on social media.
By expressing sympathy to Sonia on Facebook, Joshua is demonstrating that he is continuing to try and deflect suspicion away from himself. And he's also continuing with his enjoyment. He enjoyed the preparation. He seemed to enjoy the act itself. He enjoyed the aftermath, showing off to his friends. And now he's publicly expressing sympathy to Sonia, knowing what he's done. He's playing with Sonia.
This is a very callous, devious, controlling individual. And I suppose what we should all look at ourselves about is this is a 15-year-old boy who technically has got his life before him, yet he's acting in such a cold and callous way. And maybe we should ask, where did it go wrong?
At the end of the 5-week trial, in his summing up, the judge described Davies as devious, calculating and controlling, and that he'd shown no remorse. After 4 days of deliberation, the jury decided on a guilty verdict.
When the verdict of guilty was returned, there was a lot of emotion in the court from Rebecca's family, from Davies's family. What there wasn't was any emotion from Davies himself.
Joshua Davies was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 14 years. But even after his conviction, it still remained unclear why he murdered Rebecca.
I think that she saw through him, and because that was so wildly at odds with his own version of himself, she had to die by his hand, violently.
Rebecca seems to be the only person that stood up to Joshua, and I think with his personality, his controlling personality that wanted people to adore him, he wouldn't have liked this. And that ultimate sense of control was taking her life.
For 8 years, Joshua Davies continued to deny any culpability and maintained that it was his friend who killed Rebecca.
It was one thing to have killed Becca, but to have flatly denied having had anything to do with her murder was just adding more pain to already unbearable pain.
But in October 2018, without ceremony or warning, Joshua Davies finally confessed.
He confessed to prison officers that it was in fact him.
I can't imagine the trauma that must have heaped upon Sonia and the rest of the family. It's almost like they would have to relive it again.
But rather than an act of remorse, could this be yet another calculated manoeuvre?
There's no way his confession isn't an attempt to get some reduction or anything to basically help his sentencing. So I'm sure this is just another way for him to try to help himself.
I hope the profession will take into account the trauma that has been caused by 8 years of someone denying something he now says he's done.
He is still refusing to say why he killed Rebecca. And for me, that, in this case, is a sign of his continued control. So he's refusing to give the family that information.
It's yet to be decided when or if Davies will ever be released from prison. But could there have been anything to prevent him committing the violent, malicious murder of Rebecca Aylward in the first place?
The thing is about children who kill, they predominantly come from adverse childhood experiences. Joshua Davies came from a loving family. There doesn't seem to be anything at all in his background that can explain his behaviour. However, what we often see in people who have narcissistic traits, they often have elements of antisocial personality disorder as well. And with his controlling personality, I don't think anything would have stopped him. I think he would have gone ahead and killed Rebecca.
Were she alive today, she would be pursuing her dream, no question. She would indeed be a barrister. Yes, I think in this case, Becca would have become everything she wanted to. You just think of this gorgeous girl. Just breaks your heart.